I'm Christy.
And I'm Kathy.
And this is The Psychic
And the Skeptic. Welcome back to The Psychic and the Skeptic. Happy New Year! Welcome to 2026.
The first episode of 2026, even though it's not our very first episode.
Correct. And this is part 4 of our Psychic Detectives episodes.
I really like these episodes. I think they're great. I love diving into the cases.
Oh, yeah. It's right up your alley as the psychic. So
that's right.
Of course you'd be interested. I think it's interesting because I'm a big true crime fan.
Oh, I am too. I like listening to the audiobooks and all that. And in fact, I had 6 days off over the Christmas break and I had nothing planned but just relaxing and just, celebrating Christmas and New Year's.
Same here. So we hope that you had a wonderful holiday season with your family as well. So let's get right into this episode, starting with
another well-known and interesting psychic who's helped law enforcement, known as Allison Dubois. Now, she even had a popular TV show. It was called Medium, and it was based off her involvement with law enforcement in Arizona. Now, this show, Medium, I got to talk about it.
Right. This is one of your favorites.
I binge watched. Yeah, it was one of my favorites. And then a couple years after it was over, I went through and I binge watched the entire thing. So I really liked it. But it starred Patricia Arquette, and she played Allison. And this ran for 7 seasons from January 3rd, 2005 to January 21st of 2011.
Oh, so that was a good run for a series.
Yeah, 7 seasons, yeah.
Vaguely remember it. I don't think I watched many episodes. I didn't get into it, but that was a busy time for me, I think. Yeah.
It ran and then CBS canceled it because they said that its ratings started to decline, but only because they moved it to Friday nights and they weren't getting the same type of viewers. Yeah. And then they also said high production costs.
Sure.
So, but anyway, Allison Dubois. Let's give a little background on her. She was born January 24th of 1972. She's one day before my birthday. Mine's January 23rd.
Same year?
No, she's actually 3 years older than me. I was
that's right. You were 75.
Yeah. But she is considered an American author, and she became widely known in the 1990s through 2000s for being able to assist law enforcement on missing person cases. And we're actually going to talk about 2 of those main cases. Now, she was about 6 years old when she had her first psychic encounter. She said that she saw her grandfather at the foot of her bed. And of course, her grandfather's passed. And her grandfather told her to relay the message to her mother and to tell her mother that he's not in any pain anymore. So,
wow.
That's kind of cool.
At how old?
She was 6 years old.
6 years old.
6 years old.
So that's interesting, unless, and I might be jumping ahead here, my first thought goes to what is she exposed to at the home? What does her mom talk about? Because if the mom talks about spiritual things and metaphysical things, I could see a 6-year-old coming up with something like that to join in on the adult conversation.
Sure.
So,
well, I mean,
curious.
I don't know that information, but
Right.
I would say I do believe that children at a young age can have experiences even if they're not around like a lot of the spiritual type talk.
In paranormal investigating, we always mention to clients that children tend to be more open and believing in spirits or ghosts, which is usually why they are affected the most when we have a client reach out to us.
Yeah. And I do know that we have an upcoming episode on children and the paranormal. And so we'll dive more into that when we go to do that episode. But back to Allison, she was actually trying to become an attorney. She began doing her clinicals, working at the district attorney's office. And she would get to see crime photos that would come in, and she began to touch them and write her impressions on what she was getting off of these photos. By this time, she is a mom of 3 girls. She's trying to work her way through school, get the clinicals done, and she took her impressions and she faxed them to different agencies. Now, she's in Arizona, mind you, doing this. And she sent her impressions on the Opal Jennings case. And she sent this to Saginaw, Texas, which is in Tarrant County. And she never expected to hear anything back, she said. And I watched a little film on this as well on YouTube. But she actually heard back from the sheriff's department and they told her, wait a second, not sure how you knew about this information. This info has never been released. So they flew her to Texas and she got to help give her impressions. So our first case for her is a big one. It is the Opal Jennings case.
If you have any younger listeners listening to this podcast, these crimes are pretty disturbing. So a little disclaimer on some sensitive topics.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to a Friday evening in March of 1999 in Saginaw, Texas. 6-year-old Opal Jo Jennings was outside playing near her grandparents' home, and it was about 5:30 p.m., and she was doing what kids normally do, running around an empty lot next door with her 3-year-old cousin and a neighborhood child. Nothing about the moment was unusual, except for me. I would think they're a little bit young to be out there in an empty lot next door, but I digress.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't let my kid out. And this was in March, wasn't it? March 26th in the
Saginaw,
spring.
Texas might be one of those places where kids can do that, even little ones with maybe it's a lot safer out there.
Yeah,
But
more of a rural community.
exactly. But again, nothing about the moment felt unusual, and then suddenly everything changed, which is how every story like this goes. A man suddenly ran up to Opal. Witnesses later said that he hit her and forced her into a dark-colored car while she screamed. The car took off, leaving the other children behind, terrified, but able to tell adults what they just saw. Because of their descriptions, police were able to quickly issue an Amber Alert across the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The search was immediate and intense, and that search eventually led investigators to a man named Richard Lee "Ricky" Franks. He was 30 years old at the time and had connections to the area through family. What made him stand out was that he has a criminal history. He was a registered sex offender with previous convictions involving young relatives. When police questioned him, Franks claimed he had only given Opal a ride. He even suggested the child had made advances toward him. Ugh.
What?
Disgusting.
She is 6.
I know.
She
There's
knows
a
what
sick
advances
people out there.
Sicko. I know it's out there in our world today, but I do not see how adults could even look at a child that way.
Yes, of
That
course.
infuriates me. It really
Exactly.
does.
And it should,
Oh.
to anybody listening. Anyway, investigators also found this deeply disturbing and completely implausible, obviously. Franks insisted he dropped her off unharmed. Police, of course, didn't believe that story.
Duh.
He was arrested later that year. His first trial ended without a verdict after jurors couldn't agree, but
What?
prosecutors tried again. In September of 2000, he was convicted of aggravated kidnapping and sentenced to life in prison. He wouldn't be eligible for parole until he served at least 35 years. Franks has continued to claim his confession was forced and his intellectual limitations weren't properly considered. Yeah, of course. Well, that's that whole insanity. You have to be insane to do a crime like this.
Yeah,
But that,
especially against a child.
and that definitely means you should not be out in public. But anyway, even with the conviction, one painful question remained. Where was Opal?
So this is where Allison Dubois got involved. Now, Opal's file came across the desk of Dubois as she's working in the district attorney's office. So she begins going through the file, and like I mentioned earlier, she gets these impressions. So she starts writing these down, and she went ahead and faxed them to Tarrant County in Texas. And they flew her out to see if she could help locate where the body was. And they believed her, of course, because, again, these details had not been released to the public.
So they were intrigued.
Yes.
And thought it was worth having her travel out to the Fort Worth area.
Yeah, like what other information could she bring to be helpful?
What information did she have?
When she got there, she claimed that she was able to narrow the location of the body down to a square mile. And then she did show Texas authorities potential burial sites. And this happened about August of 2000. Okay. Now, I remember watching the show, The Medium. This was the pilot episode that got all this started. Allison did act as a consultant for the TV show, and they did base it off of her experiences as the psychic medium who worked with law enforcement. And it does show her in the show looking at pictures. And the next thing you know, she's contacted by the Rangers and they fly her out there and she meets Captain Push. And she is having some difficulty pinpointing where it's at. And then she gets to one particular place. And if I remember correctly, she tells them that, well, you're standing on her. And in the show, the main way that she got her information was through dreams. She was also on the Oprah Winfrey Show in February of 2007. And she mentioned how she saw, and she's referring to Opal Jennings, of course, how she saw 5 in her head, meaning that Opal's body would be discovered around 5 years after her disappearance.
And this is when she was talking about working with law enforcement, correct?
Correct.
So I'm wondering if when she was working with the Texas Rangers, if they had asked her about the body specifically, she got the 5, but how she interpreted that being 5 years from when they would find her body. Or if they asked specifically, when are we going to find the body? And she got a 5 in her head. So how does she take that image in her mind of the number 5 and interpret it to finding the body?
That's a good question because sometimes I'll get numbers as well. I'm just speaking from my own experience on how she could have taken this because research doesn't really say. But I know sometimes when I get a number, so say, for example, I may get 4, indicating that this could be 4 weeks, 4 months, 4 years. And I know that sometimes it works differently for each and every psychic, what we've talked before in the past. But how I pinpoint that more is I will focus in a little bit more on that number. And I feel it might be pulled to the 4 weeks, it might be pulled to the 4 months, it might be pulled to the 4 years. So remember, sometimes when you see things in your head, it's like a puzzle piece, right? And you're trying to piece that information together. So this is where your senses come in. And this is, like I said, I'm focusing in on that 4, right? To see which
Which
it's like a
feeling
pull.
goes with it?
Yes, it's
Longer
like a strong
or
pull.
shorter? And then I'm just wondering what the context was of that whole conversation with when she got this 5 in her head. So it's very interesting because for nearly 5 years, her family lived without answers. Then in December of 2003, 2 horseback riders made a devastating discovery in a remote area of northwest Fort Worth, about 10 miles from where Opal had been taken. They found human remains. Nearby were children's shoes matching the ones Opal had been wearing the day she disappeared, and tests later confirmed what everyone feared. The remains belonged to Opal.
I heard she was wearing Barbie tennis shoes too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Ugh. An autopsy showed she died from blunt force trauma to the head.
Oh.
For Opal's mother, the years of not knowing had been unbearable, and while the discovery didn't erase the loss, it did bring a small measure of peace. After all that time, Opal could finally be brought home and laid to rest.
I could not imagine what her mother and parents and family went through. At 6 years old, they are still a baby.
Yeah.
Oh.
And there are too many of these cases. So Franks was arrested and he did confess to the crime about 5 months after she had gone missing, but he never told them where the body was. So this is why it took so long, and Allison had come in the meantime to help them locate the body. However, the Texas Department of Public Safety denies ever working with her, and a sergeant with the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office acknowledges that she offered her impressions, but he states, quote, they were pretty darn generic and basically unhelpful.
But see, there's the thing. They deny And I know it was a different department, but
Right.
deny and then admit. So that right there tells you that something is fishy on law enforcement's end, in a
Well,
sense, and
it
they flew
says
her out there.
it says the Department of Public Safety, and she didn't claim to work with them. They
No.
just said that she never worked with them. It was the rangers that she worked with. So one department denies working with her. Clearly, okay, yeah, she didn't work with you. Then the sheriff, I'm not sure how involved the sheriff was, because it sounds like she was working with the Texas Rangers. So all these different departments are not talking with each other. We don't know what information this sergeant from the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office had to say that it was unhelpful. Maybe he just heard the whole mile radius and where her body was located, and that's it. And yes, that is very generic, I will say that, but a mile radius is more pinpoint when you look at an entire county. So she was clearly there working on the case. His comments are harsh, so maybe he didn't find it helpful.
Other people might have.
It didn't end up leading to the discovery of the body because horseback riders found her, and it doesn't confirm that was the place that she had pinpointed either. I think if the horseback riders had found her where she had claimed her body was, there probably would have been a little bit more media attention on that.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Right. So she was probably not correct with what her visions were, except for the 5-year piece. It did take about almost 5 years before they found her body. And I would say that's the only thing she got.
Wait a second, though. Whatever details that she sent to the Texas Rangers wasn't released to the public, but they had to believe her at some point to say, let's fly you out. See what I mean?
Yeah. So why aren't they releasing that?
I don't know.
But that's the thing. If it proves mediums are a thing, why isn't it out there?
Because I would say
they don't want to prove it.
Yeah, but I still think that a lot of psychics who work in this field, these psychic detectives, don't get the proper credit that needs to go to them, those that are.
Well,
and we're not going to be accurate about everything. But
they don't get it because we can't prove it. We can't explain it. That's what I meant.
Yeah, it's not scientific where, you can
Not
tune
even the
into
word
a different world or a different realm and get information. Yeah, no one will believe that. And no one, honestly, until you have those gifts yourself or until you work in this field, I can understand how it would be hard for you to believe. I get it. But the truth of it is there are legit psychics out there who do have gifts and can help in things like this.
But then why didn't she say, if the case is closed, why didn't she say what were the details that weren't released to the public that she picked up on?
Maybe she was asked to keep it confidential even after the case was closed. I don't know.
Why would they at this point when it's closed and he's convicted? And
I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah.
Only her and the sheriff's department know.
And that is why the skeptics still scratch their head.
Of course. Yeah. But we do have another case to talk about with her. This was the disappearance of Jackie Hartman. She was a 19-year-old nursing student in Arizona. Jackie went missing on January 28th of 2007. So Allison was contacted by someone who asked her for her impressions on the disappearance of this 19-year-old nursing student. Now, let me clarify that on this case, Allison did not work specifically with law enforcement. So she was just contacted by a civilian who was like, hey, what do you get on this? So she claimed to receive information from the victim's spirit, and she did share her insights publicly, most notably, and here we go again, on the Oprah Winfrey Show.
She had already been on the Oprah Show for other impressions.
Right.
Oprah's producers probably picked up on her public announcement of what her impressions were.
And Oprah might have liked her.
Right.
Who knows?
She probably wanted her back on. Ooh, hey, we've got another high-profile case.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
She appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show in February of 2007, and she had a camera crew that followed her to the gas station where Jackie was last seen. So she got the impression that Jackie was with a man that she didn't know well. She felt it was no one that was connected to friends or family. She said she was with a man that she had recently met, and Allison felt like the encounter was most likely like a first or some sort of early date, not anything like a long-term relationship. Now, she also felt a sudden shift from trust to fear. So she felt that Jackie initially felt comfortable and optimistic. Then she experienced a rapid emotional shift like confusion, fear, panic. And then there was this feeling of being trapped or unable to leave. She describes this moment best as, quote, something is very wrong and I can't fix it, unquote. Now, third, Allison felt there was some sort of sexual aggression and loss of control and said she perceived a strong sense of sexual aggression and that Jackie did not consent to this sexual contact and she tried to resist. But the suspect became angry when he was rejected or challenged. Now, Allison did describe this man as feeling entitled and that he became violent when he lost control of the situation. Now, number 4, Allison felt a use of a weapon. So she said she felt a gun was present, that the weapon played a role in intimidation before death, and a sudden, decisive act rather than a prolonged struggle at the end. She also reported hearing a loud ending and the sense that Jackie's death was quick but terrifying. Now, number 5, she described feeling a remote desert-like location. She got open land, dirt or sand, sparse vegetation, and a feeling of being outside city limits. She described Jackie's body as being, quote, not hidden well and left where the killer thought no one would look. Now, this time frame impression, Allison publicly stated that she felt Jackie would be found soon, either within days to a couple of weeks. Now, the perpetrator's emotional state, Allison said that she sensed that he was very detached, he lacked remorse, he rationalized his actions, and he viewed Jackie more as an object than a regular person. She described him as someone who had done bad things before and that he felt confident he would not get caught. So, that's a lot. That's a lot of impressions for her to get.
Yeah, and going down the list, that's very common in most cases similar to hers. So the skeptic viewpoint will be that if you look at any 19-year-old who's gone missing over the last several decades or generations, it is very commonly a first date. You commonly feel like there's trust at first. It quickly shifts when you're then confronted with a weapon. Of course, we can go down the list here, but again, it's that whole retrofitting. Once you do find out the facts of the case, a lot of this stuff can look like, oh, she nailed it right on the head, when in the great majority of these sexual assault cases, this is what occurs.
But then the question also is, did she know the facts of the case before she gave these impressions?
And a lot of the skeptic argument here is many of the details of the case were already out in the media. So at what point did she hear any of these details, if any, and how much did that play into what she was picking up on? So let's go back to the facts of the case. Jackie Hartman was a 19-year-old nursing student from Arizona. She was last seen, like you said, on January 28th, 2007, after leaving her home, and it was a first date with a man she had met earlier. She did not return home, and family members had reported her missing later on that day. Police treated the disappearance as suspicious after she failed to contact anyone and was unable to locate her.
Okay.
Which is very common on a 19-year-old that goes disappearing.
I know. Keep going.
Cause and manner of death, according to the trial and appellate court documents. And this is a sensitive topic because we're going to get into details about what happened to her. So if you have younger listeners with you, they may not want to hear this information. So when Jackie's body was found nearly 3 weeks after she disappeared, she had 2 fatal gunshot wounds to the head. In addition to the gunshot wounds, the medical examiner and court evidence showed that Jackie suffered several skull fractures, specifically to the left temple, the top of her head, and under her right eye. This indicates blunt force trauma before death. So she was also beaten.
And I like the fact that it was days to weeks, 3 weeks.
Sure.
Okay, keep going.
Yep. And I will give her credit on that one because she could have said 5 years in this case too and been wrong. But again, we only choose to focus on the correct items on some of these cases. But
Right, that's why I'm trying to give her a little bit more credit here.
I'm also not giving her credit on that one.
I got your back, Allison, if you're listening.
I'm just being the devil's advocate here. So there is sexual assault evidence. Jackie's clothing was found torn and bloodstained, and careful DNA analysis showed sperm found from Jonathan Burns on her body and on her underwear. Spoiler alert there, they did locate the killer and identify him.
Good.
Toxicology shows that there was some GHB, that date rape drug, present in her liver, meaning her body was filtering and metabolizing it, though the origin, natural versus administered, could not be conclusively determined. The jury was allowed to consider this evidence when evaluating whether the sexual intercourse was consensual. They have concluded that a phone call to her sister showed Jackie sounding confused and disoriented during the evening of January 27th or the 28th, suggesting impairment or physical assault before her disappearance, which matches with the GHB.
Right.
And then Jackie's purse, sandals, bra, panties, and blouse was found near the suspect's home. They were ripped and bearing her blood and gunshot damage. They were found in a dumpster near Jonathan Burns's home shortly after she vanished. Blood matching Jackie's was found on Burns's vehicles, including on men's jeans in his car trunk and an earring he had when police searched him. Burns's cell phone records placed him in the Sycamore Creek Desert area where Jackie's body was recovered on the night that she had disappeared. And Jackie's disappearance sparked extensive searches by law enforcement and the community, and just under 3 weeks later, her body was found in a desert area near Fountain Hills, Arizona. Now, this is Arizona. There is a lot of desert. Really easy to pick up on that, too. She had been shot twice in the head, and investigators determined that she did not return home after the date and was likely murdered soon after she vanished.
So I wonder how they found her body. Do you think it was someone through law enforcement searching that found her, or they got a
The
tip or
specifics
clue?
aren't really out there, but with all the criticism on the psychic investigator input, the family says that nothing that she had said had led to the finding of her body or the killer.
Right.
So it's probably her body was stumbled upon. Now, on the arrest and conviction, police identified Jonathan Ian Burns, a 25-year-old man she had gone on a date with, as the suspect. He was charged with first-degree murder, sexual assault, kidnapping, and weapons misconduct in connection with Jackie's death. In December of 2010, a jury convicted him on all counts and sentenced him to death, where he shall rot to this day.
Good. So he got death, you said?
They sentenced him to death.
Right, from
With the
2007. I wonder if he's still living
But
or...
in 2010, he was convicted.
Oh, okay. So that'd be 15 years, right? 10,
Yeah, 15.
25, yeah,
So,
15
but
years.
people can sit on death row for 20 and 30 years.
Oh, I know.
So
I know. That's crazy.
he's probably just still sitting on death row where he can rot. If he's still alive and sitting on death row, I'm hoping it's a miserable day and that he's in pain every day and it feels like he's got splinters under his fingernails and
Right? My whole
he
point,
trips
it just...
and stubs his toe every time he gets out of bed every morning, and
Yeah.
the food is always cold.
The way that Allison described his personality, I'm wondering if he's got some narcissistic traits. You
Oh,
know?
yeah. All of these criminals likely have some kind of problems. But again, this sounds like every other true crime case if you listen to young female goes missing and is sexually assaulted by the guy that she was on a date with. So it's the skeptics are going to have the leg up on this one.
Yeah. Unless you're a psychic like me and then you believe a little bit more, I would say. No, really, seriously.
No, and the odds are this is what's going to happen in a case. So it goes on both sides of the coin here. The skeptic is going to say, yeah, of course, these are the details in the case, just like all the hundreds of other cases just like it. And then on the psychic side, well, I mean, that doesn't mean that's not the impression she got. If that's the facts of the case and she was right on.
I think my whole thing is, it goes back to my earlier comment about trust. It's really hard to pass judgment on a psychic unless you can say, hey, I've worked with them. I trust what they are getting.
Right.
I have found them to be credible. And until you can actually do that, know your role and shut your hole. Because don't prejudge
Yeah.
someone when you don't have all the facts about them and
you're
who they
right.
are.
It comes down to trust because
Exactly.
I've been working with you for many years, over a decade. And not that I didn't believe you in the beginning, but trust was established after I've seen you time and time again.
Yeah.
I know the information you were given or not given on a paranormal investigation. And I do the history research beforehand to have the facts in the case to see if anything you're picking up on corroborates.
Huh?
We've established trust. This is why I still have interest in the paranormal as a skeptic, is because there's been many times I've seen and heard things that I just can't explain.
And thank you. Again, you know me, I don't BS about anything that I get. I'm
Right.
very serious about that, and I wouldn't put anything out there that wasn't true. So again, it does come down to
Right.
trust.
And I believe and I hope that those psychic detectives out there that have put their foot out there to try to help in a case understand that trust is not established from the public, and they're going to get scrutiny
Mhm.
and they're going to get some negative feedback, and they just have to understand that people just don't understand, or they don't know them well enough. And when you got all those bad apples out there spoiling the whole bunch, trying to make money off of these things
Uh-huh.
and putting all the guesses out there, hoping they stick, it's going to make the ones with the true gift kind of fade in the background.
Exactly. And that's why I've always said I don't think I'd want to be in the spotlight like some of them have chosen to be, not because I doubt my gifts, but just because you do have those naysayers out there and, you know, they're going to try to make you look bad in the long run. But I love Allison Dubois. I will say I do find a lot of things that I've researched on her to be credible, and not just because of the show. And this makes me
It's
want to
her
go back and
demeanor.
binge watch it.
It's a gut, it's a sixth sense. No, I think it helps when somebody isn't going into it for money and fame and notoriety, although skeptics might say going on a talk show is going to get you fame and notoriety, but it's not where she began. It's not like she jumped out there and went to the talk shows first to share
Right.
her gift. And she was in law school. She stumbled upon this
Mhm.
kind of work
Yeah.
unintentionally.
Exactly. And I think if I was ever approached by a talk show, yeah, we've done national TV, A&E and Animal Planet and
Right.
sci-fi and all that. But if I was just to go on strictly as a psychic and not as just the paranormal investigator, I think before I would give any impressions on anything that I got, I do believe I would give a disclaimer and help educate the public on how gifts actually work.
And the national exposure that we've had with our paranormal team is more about awareness. We're trying to help people, and that's our intent. That's our mission. It's not to gain fame and notoriety. We have other things we do with our lives. You have a
Right?
profession. I have a profession. We have a genuine curiosity, and we know other people out there do too. And as a paranormal team, we feel it's best to share what we pick up on in hopes that other teams can put what they have together and try to get more answers.
Yeah. Or
Or at least
collaborate what we've gotten.
So we're not stingy about it. We're trying to have open dialogue, hence a podcast.
Exactly.
We've had lots of these conversations, and we want to share what we think, see what you think, and go from there.
Yeah.
So
we have another one coming up. Are you ready for this
yeah, I
next
was gonna
psychic
say-
detective?
I was going to say, speaking of people who just jump on a talk show, who's
Sylvia
next?
Browne. She
Yes.
is our next psychic detective.
Now, I only say that because she was on quite a few of them.
Montel Williams, just listen, seemed to like Oprah. Sylvia Browne like Montel Williams. In fact, and Sylvia Browne is deceased now, but she was
Yes.
born in 1936, passed away in 2013. But she was a nationally famous self-described medium.
She wrote a lot of books too.
Oh, she has, yes. I think I own one of them somewhere, but I couldn't even tell you which one.
My skeptical side kind of shines on her just because of so much publicity with her and all these books and all these appearances. And Montel Williams was another one of those talk shows in the 90s that kind of had a lot of the dumpster fire type cases.
Yeah. She's faced a lot of criticism throughout the years as well.
Sure.
And she has had some predictions, but she's also had a lot that have not been valid.
She had a lot of stuff that was way out there. We're talking about specifics and being too general with a lot of the tips that psychic detectives give that the skeptics can say, oh, that's just so wide and general. Of course, you're going to get that correct. She went the other direction with some detail and was way off on a bunch of cases.
Not saying that she doesn't have gifts. I'm just saying I think If I was in her shoes, I think I would have done it a little differently, but she was a very blunt person as far as she would just tell you straight up, this is the way that it is. I don't care if you like it or not.
So, benefit of the doubt here, then maybe she just had a problem with interpretation.
Could have. Yeah, very well could have. She did make public predictions about missing people and murders. Many of her most public claims, like we were talking about, were later shown to be false or unverified. There has been detailed skeptical audits that's documented many significant failures with her, but she has had some positive things as well.
You say it enough times, eventually it'll stick. I'm sorry. I had to jump in.
Had to sneak that one in, didn't you?
Yeah, I snuck it in there.
So some of the more missing person cases that she's worked has been Amanda Berry, Chandra Levy, Opal Jennings. Remember we just discussed that one with
Yes.
Allison.
Wait,
Sean,
pause there. What did she say about Opal? Did she,
do you want to learn about that now?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. If you want to keep going, we'll come back to that one.
We will. Sean Hornbeck, Holly Cruso, and Linda McClellan.
Some of those names, if you're into true crime, you probably heard some of those names before.
Oh, I'm sure. I don't think any of the true crime ones, though, do they include the psychic impressions?
Not the ones that I've listened to.
Yeah, I haven't heard any of those before. So this is like a different approach.
Yeah, uniquely heard on The Psychic and the Skeptic.
So this first one will be on Amanda Berry. She was abducted by Ariel Castrol in 2003 in Cleveland, Ohio. And this began her decade-long captivity where her, alongside of Michelle Knight and Gina De Jesus, were held captive in Castro's home. And eventually, Berry gave birth to a daughter while imprisoned. And they do have an eventual escape. So, again, abducted in 2003, held in the house, had a child. They escaped, though, in May of 2013 because Berry managed to break free and call for help. And this led to the rescue of all three women and the arrest of Ariel Castrol. Now, when we look at Sylvia Browne, she came on the Montel Williams Show for this. In November of 2004, she told Amanda's mother that, quote, Amanda was dead. She's not alive, honey. I hate this when they're in water, unquote. She said she envisioned Amanda's jacket in a dumpster with DNA on it.
Wow.
I know.
Like I said, lots of detail and hindsight, pretty unethical. If she wasn't sure about this being true or not, that's...
And I sure wouldn't deliver that to the mom. Can you imagine how heartbreaking that would
Yeah.
be?
That was what we were talking about in the first part of this series, was how unethical it can be in revealing information that could be very harmful to the family emotionally when you don't really know and you're just going off of a psychic impression.
Very true, which is why I'm so careful about what information that I give people when I'm doing readings or giving out any spiritual type information that I get. And of course, we know that the outcome of it was in May of 2013, Amanda Berry escaped along with the two other girls that she was being held with. And she was alive. She wasn't dead. So now, after the rescue, Sylvia issued a statement saying she was, quote, relieved and reiterated that over her 50-plus years, she had helped many people and that she could not be right all the time. Some of her supporters on social media defended her and said, you can't be right all the time. Everyone makes mistakes. Now, criticism that she received for this was, of course, her prediction was wrong in the most fundamental way. And because she said Amanda was dead, but Amanda was truly alive. Now, Browne's words had deeply traumatized the family.
Mom, yeah.
And Amanda's mother died in 2006, still believing that her daughter was deceased.
What a horrible tragedy.
I
All
know,
around.
right? And so Sylvia Browne did get some criticism saying that she was preying on the vulnerable and offering false hope or false despair to families in their grief.
But this wasn't the first time something like this happened, right? She's had some other cases where the information was wrong and it created that false hope or false despair.
That is correct. So I know we've already talked about the Opal Jennings case, but Sylvia also did give some insight into this when she heard about it.
This is
And
that little 6-year-old that went missing in 1999.
in her grandparents' front yard in Texas. This is the one that
Right.
Allison Dubois helped on. On the Montel Williams Show again, of course, Sylvia's got connection with Montel. She told the girl's grandmother that Opal was not dead. Instead, she said that she had been taken into some kind of slavery and transported to someplace in Japan called Kokora. Okay.
See, this one is false hope because she's leading them to believe she's still living.
Yes. And can you imagine what the grandmother felt after finding that?
Wow. Yeah, and I'd be on the first plane to Japan spending all kinds of money to
Right. Now, we do know that police did arrest a suspect later on in 1999, and Opal's remains were found by those horseback riders. They found the top of her skull.
her Japan slavery claim was widely inaccurate and unhelpful.
Not just unhelpful, but the critics looked at it as arguably cruel and to a grieving grandmother. So again, like you said, false hope. And then the critics of psychic detectives call such grossly incorrect claims as incredibly offensive, especially when directed at distraught families. So those other detectives who work these cases, these psychic detectives, they were pretty upset about that prediction. And we know how the Opal Jennings case turns out. Now, this next one was the Sean Hornbeck case. This happened in October 2002. 11-year-old Sean Hornbeck was kidnapped while riding his bike near his Richwood, Missouri home. He disappeared for over 4 years until he and another missing boy, Ben Owensby, were found alive at kidnapper Michael J. Devlin's apartment in January of 2007. Hornbeck's disappearance sparked a massive search. It led his parents to forming the Sean Hornbeck Foundation, and tragically ended when he was discovered held captive by this Devlin guy who presented him as his own son. Can you imagine passing somebody's kid off as your own? Now, his parents also appeared on the Montel Williams Show. And this again is when Sylvia came on and gave her comments about this case. And she basically said, she told Sean's parents that he was dead, said that his body could be found in a wooded area about 20 miles southwest of their home, near 2 jagged boulders. She described the abductor as a tall, dark-skinned Hispanic man with long dreadlocks. She added that Sean's bike was probably in another state. Reporters have said that Sylvia or her team offered additional help, reportedly for a fee. Some accounts state $700 an hour. Holy Toledo.
This is
That's
that
messed up.
motivation. And I was, as you were talking about Montel Williams, I vaguely remember her on the show and just being very matter of fact. And I think it just brought lots of ratings because of how blunt she was. So I don't know if there was any monetary gain there in being on the show and creating this extra drama at the expense of these families.
Psychic involvement kept attention on Sean's disappearance over the years, helping to prevent the case from being forgotten. But there's no evidence that Browne's predictions or visions ever contributed to the actual recovery to the police leads that led to Devon's arrest. Now, criticisms for this case is that they said Sylvia was completely wrong in every major aspect. Sean was alive, not dead. He was not buried near the boulders. The abductor's description was incorrect because the abductor was Caucasian, short-haired, not Hispanic, no dreadlocks. Sean's parents have said that hearing Browne's declaration was among the hardest moments they ever experienced. I can imagine, right?
Oh, yeah.
Critics say her false pronouncement diverted resources, generated false leads, and added emotional harm to the distraught family.
Now, come on. There's no false lead there because they never really take anybody seriously when it comes from a psychic impression.
Yeah, but think about it for a second. If you can't find your loved one,
No, I'm talking about law enforcement, meaning that they looked into it and they wasted time on it. when all the other times when you get leads, they don't spend any time on it because it's a psychic impression. It's convenient to blame somebody when it's wrong, but when it's
Yeah,
right, you don't even want to acknowledge it.
that's true. If I was desperate like that trying to find my kid, I might look into any psychic lead
Oh,
I
yeah,
could.
for sure.
You know what I mean? But yes, again, and I'm not saying that Sylvia is not right on some cases, and it seems like we're just pointing out the negative here, but she was known to have several cases that were not correct. This next one is going to be the Holly Cruso disappearance. Holly was from La Mesa, California, and she always wanted to be a movie star. She would star in beauty pageants, loved attention, beautiful dresses. But when she got into her middle teens, she started hanging around the wrong crowd. She dropped out of school, started working as a waitress, ended up with an abusive and violent partner. And she would break up with him, and then he would convince her to come back. So she disappears in 1995. Her mother actually reported her to the police as missing, and she was told that they couldn't help because Holly was an adult and there was no evidence of foul play. Then 2 years later in 97, Holly's still missing, so the police began to take a closer look at her boyfriend's criminal past, and he had been arrested 3 different times for domestic violence. Holly's 30th birthday rolls around, and a San Diego newspaper actually publicized the story of Gwen, her mother's search for her daughter. And then, of course, you've got psychics that come forward. Sylvia Browne was one of those. And Sylvia had said in 2002, Browne told the family that Holly was alive and working as an exotic dancer in a Los Angeles nightclub.
A body that was found in 1996 in San Diego was positively identified in 2006 by dental records as Holly Cruso.
She had, in fact, died and was not alive, as Browne had claimed.
That's a long time. That's 10 years
Yes,
for a body to be unknown and to finally get dental records
I know.
aligned to identify this person.
A year after Holly disappeared, skeletal remains were found near San Diego. And then that's when they got the dental records that later confirmed that the remains were those of Holly. So
So her
Sylvia,
prediction was clearly false. She said she was alive, but in reality,
she was
she
dead.
was dead. She'd been dead, and skeletal remains were found. She just wasn't identified yet. But the misinformation likely sustained false hope for grieving families. Now, imagine that if this were me, I'd be at every exotic dance club in Los Angeles looking
No
for her.
joke.
And how horrible to be exposed to that. Obviously, Sylvia probably didn't. She just relayed the information that she thought she was getting,
Mhm.
thinking that the family would then try to search for her. But I think most of us would, and we'd go to every nightclub looking for her.
Oh, yeah. And I'm wondering, like, what information did Sylvia use on her cases? Was she using photos? Was she
Yeah.
using an object? What was she using to identify these people?
We're not trying to slander her or anything like that.
No.
It's just obviously these are the cases that went wrong, and
They were on the Montel Williams Show. This
Right.
was made public.
yeah,
This
she
was
she
big
put herself
news.
out there. We're trying to maybe be objective here and trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, but the fact that she chimed into so many cases, sure, she would be right on some, but she was wrong and really wrong on a lot of cases where she gave lots of detail. I don't know what her confidence level was in what she was picking up on. And if she just rolled with it and didn't really care about the consequences, there
Could
was
have
no
been.
disclaimer on what she was saying. If that was so that Montel could get ratings and they kind of had a deal going, I don't know. I don't want to open up conspiracies here.
Because we don't really know
Sure.
overall.
We're just relaying what we're getting and giving our impression of what it looks like.
Right.
So I think it shows a good balance between some seemingly talented psychic detectives and also the poor train wreck of Sylvia Browne, who just went way off the deep end with some of her impressions. Showing the perspective, showing the balance. But we are not done yet. We thought maybe episode 4 was our final one, but we still have some pretty high-profile cases to cover, like the Chandra Levy case and the List murders, and some really well-known psychics to talk about, like John Edward and James Von Prague, if you've heard of them.
And hopefully you've enjoyed the series
Right.
on psychic detectives, and one more coming, folks. And then we're going to wrap up this series and we are going to start something new.
So if you really like this content, we'll just keep going with some more psychic
No, we
detective.
won't. I'm tired of the research. I'm just kidding. It's been interesting. I've enjoyed researching it.
Or if you really like true crime and you want to see a paranormal perspective of it, write us in and let us know, because we will tailor this podcast to our audience and
Yes.
give you what you're looking for.
But we got a lot more interesting stuff coming up, guys. We got cryptid files, and we are actually going to do an episode coming up on psychic readings where I, Christy, will get where you guys can actually listen to pre-recorded reading that I did with someone. And Kathy is going to be in the dark. She will not have access to listen to this. And then she can just come in, tell me whether she thinks I'm full of crap or not, even though I know I'm not.
You'll get the skeptic reaction this time.
Exactly. So if you're interested in having a reading by me and be on our podcast, feel free to email us in. Let us know.
And you can share your own parastories, topic suggestions, and comments to psychicandskeptic, all spelled out, at gmail.com. So you can find us wherever you enjoy your podcasts, and thank you for listening.
Because the paranormal is the normal.
Not yet understood.